Welcome to another episode of our roundtable sessions. My name is Sarah Filion. I have the Matilda Swanson Gallery located in Clarksburg, Ontario. We represent about 30 to 40 different artists. Most of them are local, but we do have some from all across Canada as well. Our guests today are all artists that are showcased in the gallery. Welcome, Mark, Az, and Andrew. Thank you all for being here today. So let's begin with some introductions. Mark Berens, who are you? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, geez. I'm an artist, I guess. Landscape oil painting artist from Collingwood, Ontario. Been painting 20 years, 20 years, so quite a while. And not to connect to today, but I pretty much tried to start right after September 11th. So 2001, not exactly the greatest time to get going. So it's just kind of reminiscent of that, but just minus the stay-at-home part. So, but things are good. Things good here in Collingwood, and it's cool to be on with a couple other Collingwood artists today.
Now, this is the first one where everyone kind of knows each other. All the other sessions, no one really knew each other. So, Kaz Jones.
I'm a painter also. I've been painting full-time for about 12 years. Prior to that, I was an elementary school teacher, kindergarten mostly, and alternative education. And I paint at the Tremont Studios in Collingwood. That's me.
Thank you. Andrew Peycha.
I'm Andrew Peycha. I've been painting for 20 years, and I do landscapes painting, and I paint at the Tremont Studios also. It's been very lonely there lately because there's only two of us there right now. So, but it's been pretty quiet.
So you're still going into, Kaz, I'm assuming you're in the studio then right now?
I'm at home. I have not been to the Tremont since this started, just to be safe.
Yeah. And Andrew, you're still going in?
Yeah, so the kind of the protocol is I have a bag of the hand or sanitizer wipes or whatever, and I unlock the door, wipe the handle, lock in everything. Basically, everything you touch, you wipe down. I paint at night occasionally, so I only have 2 nights out of the week that I'm allowed to be in the studio. Otherwise, I have to be out by 5:30 just to contain anything really. So
because the people upstairs come down their laundry facilities on our studio floor.
Right.
So we share that space.
Yeah.
Right.
And so far it's there's another artist down the hall, Tish, and she's been in the afternoons, but it's pretty much just been I've been in there and the ghost of the Tremont, and that's about it. So,
Have you seen or heard the ghost?
no, not lately. Only comes out at night, really. So
Yeah.
I've only done a few night sessions, and otherwise I just go in during the day. So, and Rick comes in, wipes down. I think he's coming in twice a day and wipes down the whole building.
Good.
I haven't seen anybody. I've seen people come and get curbside art supplies from Jason.
Oh yeah, that's great service.
Yeah.
If only we could be selling art that way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be great?
Just pull up and load up the painting.
Yeah. Here you go.
For an art store, you have to know. It's like going grocery shopping, really. Now, I think you really have to know what you're getting.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No browsing.
Yeah, half the time I walk into the art store, into Jason's or Curry's or wherever, and not know what I'm getting. Really.
Yeah.
So now I really have to think about what I need. So
Yeah.
Planning.
Oh my God.
Dreaded planning.
Planning.
All of you have made a point of traveling and fully experiencing nature firsthand to create your artwork. You are all now professional campers and wilderness survivors. how important is immersing yourself in nature, and what impact does it have on your creative process?
Mark?
We're professional glampers, not campers. Glamp. You show up with your car and you leave things in your car and you set up a tent. So well, it's fun. I mean, I'm kind of new to the plein air painting experience. So I just added that recently in the last couple of years, and it's definitely fun to be out there and thinking differently than sitting in your studio doing the same old thing, and being adventurous, going for hikes, getting an elevated height, or going out on the water, bringing your canoe or your little tin can with a 9.9 horsepower engine on the back, something like that. So it's good to get out and about.
I agree. I think when you're in nature, everything else disappears, so that you're kind of very focused. You don't have the distractions of everyday life. I mean, there's the whole survival thing, like, have I got my bear spray with me? But apart from that, it's a very fine-tuning experience. Really makes you see more clearly, I think. And I haven't been plein air painting for that long either. I was only introduced to it in the last 10 years, but I've always been an outdoor person, so it naturally fit together. So it's great. Yeah, I like painting outdoors, and I like bringing that work back into the studio and seeing how it affects my next work, my next series.
I like the idea of also planning to go somewhere on a trip and picking where we're kind of going. I like that experience too, which is kind of well, it's a part of the experience and adding surprise to where we're going and stuff. You always got to have a life jacket and a whistle and a hat, right, Kaz?
That's right. Well, I thought it was really cool, Andrew, when you guys did the whole group of sevens painting spots experience. That was had a lot of forethought, right?
Yeah, and well, I would have to say that it was probably pretty much the worst conditions I've ever painted in.
Was that the one with the black flies, Mark, in the painting?
Oh yeah. Kiosk Lake up there in northern Algonquin Park, and
yeah,
worst black fly season in 100 years since Tom Thompson was around. So
those flies added a lot of texture to your painting.
Yes, and your legs, if you didn't tuck in your socks or your pants into your socks,
that's misery for me.
You got some nice bites up your ankles there. So
yeah. It fine-tunes your skills very quickly, and it makes you realize some paintings are not going to be masterpieces. or the painting in the snow, rain.
Yeah.
It adds a neat dynamic, and the lighting is so different than compared to the studio that personally I find that my paintings are very middle tone while I'm out in plein air, and then when I come into the studio I'll have to kind of hit it up a little bit with lights and darks. But I think that's just a lighting thing. I wish we could do more plein air painting, really, but I get addicted to the studio too. So,
do you have any future trips planned? Any of you?
We did, Mark, didn't we?
We did. We were going back to Kiosk, booked for May 15th, but it's not going to open. So,
not going to happen, eh?
So I was looking forward to it, but it's disappointing. But there's so many places to go still, and we'll see what rules and regulations they have this summer. But the one thing I wanted to add was, like, even just here in Ontario, like, me and Andrew went up to a place called the Fox Islands off of Killarney, And it was just amazing. It's still Georgian Bay, but it's different Georgian Bay. It's the islands come out of the water going straight up vertically, and I kept thinking, man, it'd be cool to bring your skateboard because it's a smooth Georgian Bay rock, and you can literally skateboard from the top to the bottom of some of these islands.
Wow.
Yeah, I find what's fascinating about Ontario is the just the vast change and shift in landscapes in such a small area. I grew up north, northern Ontario. It's about 12 hours north of here, and I remember taking the train, and I knew where I was according to just looking out. Oh, I'm in Sudbury now, or wherever it was, and the landscapes are so distinct and so different. And yet it's all in Ontario still. I think that's very special. So wherever you go, you can still get be stimulated, right, in different ways by nature.
Yeah, the rocks and trees change, right?
Yeah.
You know, when you hit that Canadian Shield, those big, huge rocks just are amazing.
I think my favorite is what the spot Mark was talking about. Killarney area is probably my favorite in Ontario, really, because it's just so crazy, the colors of the rocks and the quartz and how the rocks sparkle in the sun, and also it can be pretty weather crazy. It just changes on, in seconds. It can change and be that scary, maybe not glamping type of camping.
Yeah, we weren't glamping there, that's for sure.
Yeah, and crazy skies, big changes in the skies and clouds.
Yeah.
I really love those big white pines, the ones that are windswept. Like, for me, that's great Georgian Bay material.
The very typical Canadian landscape, right?
Yeah.
For this region, very different, like out in BC, right? So different, but here the rock and those pines are kind of very sort of distinctive.
Yeah. I have fun. Remember, one of the places we went to, I think three times maybe, was Canoe Lake, which is obviously a fan favorite of Tom Thompson.
Yeah.
And you can understand why he was such a fan of the place. I don't know if you know it, but it's like an hourglass shaped lake. So it's got a big section on the bottom and a big section on the top, and then it comes together tight in the middle, and there's islands in the middle. And it was amazing even there to see how quickly the weather could change, and a big cloud comes out of nowhere. But then the depth as well of the islands and the foreground and then the background, and how it all, even the colors would change. Like the islands in the middle could be in shadows, but then the landscape in the background can be lit up by bright sun, and it just creates this awesome depth that Tom fell in love with, I guess. So
it sounds like, I mean, I haven't been to any of these places, and I just see the paintings constantly, and we've been seeing paintings from other artists throughout the years as well, of Killarney and Canoe Lake, etc. And so it sounds like they truly are magical places, which is why so many artists are wanting to paint them and visit these locations. That's what I'm getting from what you're all saying. So that's pretty cool. During all these trips, you've been accompanied by several other fellow artists. Andrew and Mark, you're part of the Untamed Things group of landscape painters that embark on plein air painting adventures, as you mentioned, in the same locations as Tom Thompson. And Kaz, I believe you've gone on several trips as well with some of those artists and others as well. All three of you have a very solid peer group of artists. Why is that connection important?
I think it's really important in that it's motivational and to go do things, go places, and be inspired by other people's work and the way they see the environment. So I love tripping with other people. It's great.
You like what with other tripping?
Yeah.
I was gonna say it's good to be on with a group because suddenly you'll get an email the night before and it's like, hey, I'm going painting tomorrow morning or in 2 days or whatever, and it's like, okay, and then it just kind of motivates you, like you said, and it gets things going, and it's like, yeah, let's go do something different today, find somewhere new.
It will definitely change, like, the way things are done. We've been chit-chatting, a group of us, about going painting, but we all have to drive in separate cars.
Yeah.
And like, it's changed the dynamic of how you go and approach it, which is a little frustrating because we all have to drive in separate cars to the same spot. And, you know, to go out with a bunch of people and see how they approach things is nice too, because then you can get to see how people do things, how they approach things, different palettes, different, you know, that type of idea, different paint, you know, and, you know, you can take that back to your own studio and learn from it, which is nice.
One thing I like to add in terms of one of the first trips with the Untamed Things artists you talked about, it was new for me, but they had all gone on these adventures together already. And after the first day of painting, I had a stapler, I had cardboard. I'm stapling my paintings together face to face like this to protect them for the day and the rest of the trip. And, you know, we're prepping dinner, the campfire is going around, and everybody's got their paintings laid out. And it's like a little critique going on, and you got to see everybody's work, and they're all beside each other's. And I'm like, oh, shit, I got to go, like, unstaple my paintings and get them out and for everybody to see. So I thought that was pretty funny for me to not know, but nice to see, you know, because there's this end of the day critique going on.
And there's always a painting or two that gets burnt in the fire too.
Yeah.
It's kind of an interesting observation on how important community is when we can't have that community right now. Like, as Andrew was saying, you know, we can't go painting together. You could easily go up there on the escarpment somewhere close by and paint, but it's just not the same if you don't have that community of like-minded artists around you. That's one of the great things about having our studio at the Tremont as well, is that we have that community of people and friends like Mark who drop by. So it's, I think human connection is so important, and it's really emphasized when you can have it, and you really appreciate it when you can.
The simple luxuries, it seems.
Yeah.
My experience with having artists or creative people in my peer group is there's just another level of understanding, an unspoken level of understanding and respect, where you don't have to explain yourself, why you just want to stop and look at what's around you. Whereas other people would just keep walking by very quickly, not soaking in what the beauty that is Mother Nature, and just understanding each other's weirdness and being totally fine with it.
Yeah.
Speaking of weirdness, I got an Andrew story.
Okay.
Oh, it'll be good. It'll be good.
Well, it's just his way of painting sometimes. Like we get off the boat and he's got his gear. You all have your gear. You got your little plein air painting kits or whatever, and you got your seats. And he has a tendency to just go to an end of a point and turn around and set up shop and start painting. So he doesn't know what's behind him, but it's his routine to kind of go to a spot, turn around, and start painting. Whereas some other artists will take an hour to walk around or 45 minutes to find, you know, that perfect.
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah,
And that's notorious for Andrew. He just gets off,
he's
goes to the
fast.
point,
I
turns
can,
around and starts painting.
I can see that, definitely. Andrew doesn't waffle. I don't think Andrew's a waffler. It's like yes or no. Yes, I know this works. No, that doesn't. Move on. No waffling from that guy.
Mhm.
No. No flaky artist.
Brace for impact. Yeah, it will be different this summer, definitely, to see how and when we can get out. I find now and into June, I tend to go out a little more, but it might be later that we actually have to get ourselves organized and then go out. So
I'm kind of thinking ahead to fall. Like, I think fall's going to be our plein air time this year.
yeah,
Hopefully, fingers crossed, right?
definitely.
Yeah.
And plein air can just happen. Kaz has been a part of this too. Plein air can happen in the kitchen too.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
With computers. With computers. Because it's raining sideways, and I have a point where I'm not going to sit outside in that.
We did a trip with a group of people to the Charlevoix region in Quebec, and it was April, and we all thought we'd be outside painting, and it was like -20 and 6 to 8 feet of snow. So you couldn't really spend a lot of time standing still outside. Yeah, so we did a lot of sort of quick sketches, photos, came back to the farmhouse and painted around the fire. It was kind of nice.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
A little more romantic.
Yeah.
We did it in Newfoundland too. We
Yeah.
in the kitchen for 2 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was 2 days, and I forget how many. There was a big group of us there, so it was kind of interesting because we all set up around it was a church, and we set up in the church our little stations. So
that was a fabulous place that we rented because it was a converted church. So the entire middle of the church was like open space with the kitchen on one side and all the bedrooms and stuff around. So
Sounds amazing.
Tons of space. Yeah.
Gosh.
they
Yeah.
put me in the back, the very back room, because I'm messy and smelly, apparently.
I was in the front.
Yeah. I got the back room, so.
Do stimulants have an impact on your creativity? For example, marijuana, alcohol, caffeine, or drugs. I'm just going to put a disclaimer out there also. I'm not implying that any of you use or abuse these substances. I'm just curious to hear if it has any impact on your creativity levels. Does it enhance it? Does it hinder it? And I'll contribute my experiences as well.
You gonna answer this one first, Mark?
I'm an avid smoker, I guess you could say. I definitely would connect it to creativity and getting motivated, and I think everybody has their own reasonings why they smoke and things like that. But me personally, I lost my oldest brother when I was 17, so at a very young age, I kind of smoked to get by, and as you're launching a career as an artist, there's going to be tough times as well, financially and that sort of thing. But I certainly used it to help to, not only be creative, but to put up with, the early demands of trying to be an artist and get by. And but it certainly helps with ideas and creativity. And I would say alcohol, not so much, maybe. Maybe it's more an end of the day thing, maybe for me. But and then, yeah, I definitely pop a coffee in my mouth in the morning and get that to get you going as well. So I don't know, Andrew, what about you?
I think painting in every aspect of every state of mind is important. So, you know, when I'm working on a piece, I like to work on it without drugs. I like to work on it with drugs. On coffee, I do have a 3-beer limit. 3-beer limit when I'm working at the studio, because I find after 3 beers, I might as well just.
I've witnessed more beer go down than 3. I'm pretty sure.
That's the after hours, Mark.
That's the after hours. Come on.
All right.
Yeah, so I think it's important, you know, to kind of play around with it in that state of mind, and you know, it just makes it. Sometimes I use it to for focus, because I have trouble focusing sometimes. So my kid just said,
But, you know, even without what's going on right now, you know, even when life was, I guess, normal, there's still stresses to daily life, you know, and I'm sure in a way it's a way to turn off those stresses and then get creative, you know.
People are used to how they numb themselves is to a doctor puts you on antidepressants. I think, you know, this is not my medical opinion, but I think that smoking is probably a healthier way of, say, numbing yourself when you do need to de-stress, rather than being on different kinds of medication to do the same thing, right? My own personal experience with that. I remember being on antidepressants, and it was just the worst thing ever. I felt like I was not there. And I only realized it until after I got off of it and I quit cold turkey, and I thought, oh, I feel creative again. It suppresses your creativity, whereas I don't think you know, smoking does. And I hear that so many people, I have the complete opposite. I cannot be creative or productive when I smoke. I was just having this conversation with a friend last night, how for him, it enhances his creativity and his productivity. And I know a lot of people are like that too. And for me, it's the best I can do when smoking is watching a movie and giggling on the sofa. Don't ask any more of me. Not gonna happen. And I also don't think people are surprised to hear that artists do dabble in these smoking, drinking, whatever it is, right? It doesn't seem to be all that taboo to say if your doctor or your lawyer was smoking, then people might have an issue with it. But if you're an artist, it's kind of
I don't think I want my lawyer smoking, really.
Yeah.
It would help.
Well, I don't know how I got in this conversation.
I know. I was thinking that. I was like,
yeah, I know. What about drinking? Because for me, I find that drinking, if I need to have a brainstorm session with myself, I'm gonna drink. And I'm gonna turn on some tunes, and then I come up these ideas come up, and I write them down. The next day, I check them out. Sometimes they're legible, sometimes they're not. But I do oftentimes follow those ideas. For other people, alcohol doesn't have that effect.
3 beers.
3 beers, yeah.
And then a nap.
And a nap.
Yeah.
How about you, Kaz? I'm sure you've got your 40 ouncer there and just.
Yeah. Right here. I am just such a clean
smoking
gal. Just a happy-go-lucky, pretty darn tolerant, smiley kind of gal. Honestly, I don't do any of that stuff.
Which is awesome.
You're gonna have to come glamping with us, Kaz.
As I said, I'm very tolerant.
So what about caffeine? Does it
Tea.
get?
I'm a tea drinker.
Yeah.
Kaz, you're boring, for crying out loud.
Am I boring, Mark? No.
I'll bring a tea next time to the Tremont.
Okay.
I'll bring you a
Bring
tea.
me a
Yeah, all the tea is gone now.
I'm gonna have to bring you more, Andrew.
I know.
And
Yeah.
cookies. Yeah.
Cookies. Yes, cookies. Yes, the ginger snaps.
Yeah, they're good.
Oh. Oh. All of you have varying kinds of distinct styles. Andrew, you're very well known for your linear work, but you're also an amazing portrait artist, and you're also, I'd say, a normal landscape painter, normal comparison to your linear work. Kaz, when I think of you, I just think of still lives, which I'm a huge fan of. But you've become a landscape painter, and I see a different side of you in that work. And Mark, you're famous for your landscapes, but you're also working on a series of spirit animals. What do we call that? Spirit animals? What are you calling that
I
series?
just started kind of having fun, doing more portraits, and it was more abstract. I kind of started splattering paint and
Yeah.
letting
And-
paint run and trying different things. But
Yeah, so artists such as yourselves are very fluid in your creativity, while others have been painting in the same style with the same technique and sometimes even just the same subject matter for their entire careers without deviating at all. Do you have any thoughts on this? Can you envision yourself choosing one of your styles, one of your subject matters, and sticking with it forever? Or, why do you need that variation?
I think I need it just for the change of pace. Maybe because I'm a creative person, I can't do something like for more than 3-4 months at a time, and then my eye starts to wander, and I think about a new series, and I'm inspired by different subject matter. But I think our styles kind of come through no matter what the subject matter is, right? Like you can still see it's an Andrew painting or a Mark painting. But I started with still life, and that's my comfort zone. And then I'll do a series of landscape, or I'll do a series of big machinery or ships or something. And then I come back to my comfort zone of still life to kind of mellow out, and then I'll leave and do another series. But it keeps it interesting for me. I need that variety for sure.
And Mark, you were tapping onto it where you just want to have some fun.
yeah, that new stuff you talked about, that might have been born out of frustration, maybe, and issues with not your gallery, but maybe other galleries, and just using that energy to try something new. The one thing I'll connect back to the plein air painting and going on with other people and the critique, and seeing everybody's work at the end of the day. That was very educational, to see how people do their different styles, and even see how they kind of mimic and change their styles, and make little differences here and there, or just something even just like, oh, this one starts with a gray background. Andrew typically, I think, still paints with a gray background.
Yeah.
Brian Wall, our other friend. Hope you're doing well, Brian. He paints with a kind of a light brownish background color. And me, I used to just start on the canvas. I just set up and get ripping, so, but that's something I learned from them, and I started doing that. So, and now I do it all the time. So.
I didn't know you started just with a blank background. Wouldn't have thought that.
Yeah, lazy. Just want to get going, I don't know.
Mark, did you go to art school?
Yeah, I did my time at OCAD back in the day. I would even still just say OCA.
Yeah.
OCAD University now, but yeah, I went there from 96 to 99. So, like I
And
said, and then launching your career right at around 2011. So,
right.
but yeah, what about you, Kaz?
Oh, I did a degree in printmaking at Guelph University
Nice.
and art history, and then went to Teachers College a couple of years after that. But started with printmaking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I never had any painting training, really. I've just
Okay.
learned that from practice and friends and colleagues.
Good.
Yeah.
Still creative though.
Yeah.
Good. Andrew, where did you attend?
Sheridan College in Oakville for illustration. So I worked for Toronto Star. I did a lot of black and white pieces for their editorial when there was money in the budget for editorials. And I did a few, I forget what they're called, on the back of the main section of the Globe and Mail. It's a couple facts and arguments.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I did a bunch of stories through that, and then just moved back home. It might have been 2000, I think, and started painting more or less. And yeah, just kind of fizzled out of illustration because it's kind of a weird career now. Out of all my graduating class, I think there's 2 or 3 guys that are still illustrating, and that's like out of 30 people or something.
Wow.
So 2 or 3. One of them is a comic book illustrator. So yeah, otherwise, yeah, and then I've done a couple of courses here and there, aside from going to school. So, but
Where did all the lines come from?
Yeah, you're kind of the inspiration behind that question, Andrew, just based on conversations you and I have already had in the past and just the varying differences in your work.
all the lines came from, I had a painting teacher, and she had us paint horizontally, like your brushstrokes were all horizontal. So instead of, when you plein air paint, you kind of, I'll use my hand, you kind of draw with the paint and stuff like that. This was, so you drew the image. If I drew an apple, and then you had to paint in your lightest light and your darkest dark, and then but it was, so you weren't using the brush to create the illusion of shape. So that was kind of where it originated from. So I took it to the extreme, right? Like took it.
Why not?
Yeah, why not? So as a Lego on steroids. And then it was, I don't know, it was just something different basically at the time, because I felt that I needed to have a distinguished style, and that comes from illustration, and they kind of ingrain that in your head at school that you need to find your style, and that was kind of where it came from. Basically, I had to find some style that I thought, yeah, I'll do this for a few years and then change, but it's led to 14, 15 years doing that style. So it's, and then I'll flip back and forth. Like the other day I was in the studio and kind of not being very productive, and smoking wasn't working. So I was like, oh, I'll just do a plein air. And I pulled out some photos. I think everybody who's lately has been pulling photos out from, 1999 type of thing, and going through photos, whether you need those. So I found a couple photos from literally 1999, and I just did a painting of one of those because I didn't do it in the style that I normally do. I did it in my plein air style.
Mm.
It's a different way of thinking a little bit, I guess. And so it keeps it interesting for me. So, yeah.
Well, we all have different facets of our personality, right? That we need to express. So I think that's what that is. I personally don't understand how someone just paints the same thing in the same way constantly.
Anybody want to talk about that? No.
Yeah.
Paint same way, the same constantly. Yeah. I like.
And we all have series, right? We all have series. We get into it. We just need to create based on that series, and then we kind of move on,
Yeah.
right? And oftentimes there's a demand, so you have to revisit it, right? Because we need to make some money, so we do end up revisiting it. But it's just I there's so many artists out there who only have one style, and they've been painting that same scene forever. And that's what maybe they're painting other things behind the scenes too, right? But I'm just think as a creative person, we're just creative in everything that we do. Every aspect of our life, we're creative with it. So it just fascinates me how some artists are just so very focused on that one style. And none of you are. None of you are. You all have variations of it.
I like the way Kaz put it, though. You were saying, Kaz, that you kind of see something and you do it differently, or you paint tractors and then you go back to your comfort zone.
Comfort zone,
Yeah.
And I think I work on a bunch of stuff at the same time, and I always kind of have a comfort painting. It's like a warm cup of coffee for me. I can focus in on that because right now I'm painting mountains and the grain elevators, which I don't normally ever do. So but then I have a big tree painting. So I still reach back for the forest scenes, which I think it's just like it's like a kid and his teddy bear or something. I don't know.
So what was what you don't have a teddy bear?
No, I said you gotta have the teddy bear.
What was your first aha moment when you realized you wanted to pursue a career in the art world? And do you remember one of the first pieces where you thought to yourself, hey, I might actually be pretty good at this?
I moved to Whistler, BC, back in 2002, I believe, to be exact. And I was, I was like Andrew, actually. I was doing more illustration. So, the Globe and Mail section, the Toronto Star, I did little illustrations for that as well. But when you have an art director guiding you, that is not fun sometimes. And I grew frustrated with that right away. So I moved to Whistler. I started painting the mountains. Love the mountains. Mountains are awesome. The depth and standing on top of Whistler, looking around, what a feeling. But even before I did that, I walked into the biggest gallery in Whistler Village, and it's called Plaza Galleries. And I walked in there and I just told him, I'm like, I'm here to hang on your walls. Like, that's why I moved here.
Good for
you. And he's like, great, show me some stuff. And 2 weeks later, I walk in with my oil paintings of the mountains, and he's like, yeah, sure, I'll keep them. So maybe that was kind of my aha moment. And, if you set your mind right and you want to do it, just go and freaking do it,
Well, I was still teaching when I started painting, and having not had any instruction in painting, I just got together with a couple of other women, one of whom sort of had a bit of experience, and we were like a Friday afternoon painting group, and I had a little toddler at home, and I just made time to do that for myself. And then I got a few paintings together, and I was living on Quadra Island in British Columbia at the time, and we had there an annual studio tour. And somebody said, Kaz, you should be on the studio tour. And I'm like, I'm not a real painter. And I ended up being on the studio tour, and it was like, all my paintings sold. And all of a sudden I thought, oh my God, I'm an artist. But I kind of thought that I was an artist there for a while because I wasn't practicing. I think in my teaching, I was always incredibly the creative teacher, but never sort of producing a standalone work. It was through my life and my teaching that I was creative. That was my avenue of expression. And then when I started to paint, that's what became my focus. And that first studio tour, when people kind of were very accepting, that was a turning point for me, I think. Yeah.
Nice.
I painted in high school watercolors for a bit, and then I did a couple little shows on studio tours and stuff like that. And then I thought I'd be responsible and go and try to be an illustrator because it was a paid gig. But I had a feeling I'd always come back. But I think when I was in Toronto illustrating, the kind of the aha moment was I saw a gallery. I was driving cars. I was a car jockey, so I'd drive past this one gallery, and I kind of same premise as Mark. I want to be in that space, and so I was doing maybe one painting a year, and I dropped that painting off, and it sold. So it was that kind of stabilized the idea. So, and then I stopped illustrating. So I can't remember when that, 1999 maybe. Again, seems to be a theme this week.
20 years ago, yeah.
1999.
Yeah.
Yes, 20 years ago. Thanks, Kat. Make us feel it.
That's the teacher talking. Well, those are all, I like all these stories. That's so lovely. Great experiences, sound like.
What's interesting to note as well is that we each told a little story about other people appreciating what we were doing. And I suppose that's kind of an acknowledgement that what you're feeling is okay. Like I can do this.
It's okay to be appreciative of your own talents.
Yeah.
During this time of COVID-19, have your creative and productivity levels increased? Have they decreased? Have they remained the same?
Well, if I answer honestly, I have not been painting. I think as a woman, I have all these other responsibilities in my life. I'm preparing food for my elderly parents and freezing it and shipping it to Oakville. And I've got my son home studying for university exams, and the house is full because it's tiny, and his girlfriend was living here for a while. So I have been distracted. I have my home studio here. I have my stuff I need. And I get this feeling that it's going to happen soon. What I have been doing is making a blanket out of felted wool sweaters. So I had this huge collection of wool sweaters from when I used to make messenger bags a long time ago. And I cut them into 5-inch squares, and I'm sewing my COVID blanket together. That's what I've been doing. So that's creative, and it's kind of, takes you to that other creative place, which is fun, but no paint to canvas yet, but it's going to come. I still feel we got weeks ahead of us. Yeah.
I've been, as I said, I've been going in the studio. I was away, and so I had to stay at home for 14 days. So I didn't paint, but I did lots of stuff around the house. My wife and I and Rory built a big dining room table out of the wood that was in the house. So that was something creative. And so Pinterest, you look at different tables and kind of figure out how to do it. And then I built a garbage box, which out of all the leftover wood from the house again. And then going into the studio, it's been kind of weird because I've been trying to, I would say it's been a bit stifling, the COVID-19, because there's lots of information coming out, and it's 90% irritating, I think, and that kind of takes up too much brain power for being creative sometimes. So I've been, turning my headphones on and trying to focus on it, but I would definitely say it's kind of everything's slowed down pretty much. But I'm still going in, and there's days where I go in and probably shouldn't go in, but I'm forcing myself to go in and continue to turn the wheel, so to speak.
Andrew, I heard an interesting analogy, and it sort of goes back to our camping conversation. It's like we've been attacked by a bear. The bear's gone back into the forest, but he's still out there. So it's like we know COVID is happening, and everybody's kind of on alert, like there's something to be afraid of, and it makes you feel uncomfortable, and you're sleeping in your tent and the bear's out there.
Yeah.
So you've got one eye open, and you're listening. And it's kind of like that too. Like it's hard to focus.
Yeah, I'm
distracted. Yeah, for sure. And I'm trying to avoid news. Like, I get my CBC news, and that's enough. I don't want to see visuals. I want to, just hear what's important. But it is really kind of a major bear in the forest. Yeah.
I agree. It's tough.
Yeah, it's all the weed in the world won't make me creative right now, I think. So it's pretty stressful times. I mean, it's all of I'm recently separated. So you're kind of dealing with sending the kids back and forth, and I was kind of all ready to buy my ex out and had all the paperwork all lined up, and I'm ready to sign and be able to keep my house. That's what I'm getting to. And now all this happens, and now I'm like, oh, am I going to even be able to, keep the house in a way? So, not really a good time to be creative. I'm prepping the house to put it on the market and see what happens. And you don't even know if it's going to sell, so it's, stressful times. I play a lot of guitar, so I'm relying on that. That's my teddy bear. My guitar is my teddy bear. So I've been doing a lot of that, and truthfully, I want to go in the recording studio when this is all done and focus kind of in a different art and go towards music a bit. And it's kind of in the back of my mind, if I can get one song on the radio, then I can maybe triple the prices of my art. So there's a strategy going on, but not much creativity, no.
Interesting. Yeah, I there's a group of artists that well, it varies. So no one stayed the same in terms of level of creativity. They've either stopped painting because they're focusing on other life issues, right? As sounds like all of you are. And then there's another group who finally they have time to actually focus and paint. And they're just painting like mad. So it's just interesting seeing the difference. But hardly anyone has just stayed same even keel. which makes sense. I mean, how could you?
Yeah, I've kind of gone back to Facebook recently to communicate with old friends and see how they're doing and blah blah blah. But it's kind of like Kaz says, it's you don't want to see so much, right? And then people start sharing this, and the Facebook political people are out there, and you're just like, shut the fuck up, and you don't even want to be on there. So
yeah, I get it. I mean, the reason why I started doing this series was just want to change the narrative a little bit and get to know the artists, because it's art that's helping us all heal. We're all watching movies, listening to music, whatever it may be, right? We all need art right now, and why not put a face to the artists and get to know everyone, and change the narrative, make it a little more positive than not just to sell, not just for selling, right? Just some truth out there.
Yeah. I think
Connection and community, like you said, Kaz.
Yeah. And I think it's ironic that, we haven't had a conversation in a long time. And, I don't sit down and have conversations with certain people. And yet every day for like 3 hours, I'm communicating with people from one side of Canada to the other, like all my girlfriends, all my family friends, everybody's connecting. It's like you need to find that human contact. And
yeah, I've had a lot of. Go ahead.
Although it's like no physical contact, there's been a ton of communication happening. I'd never Zoomed before a month ago. Yeah.
Yeah, I've had a lot of conversations with just old friends, so
Yeah,
it's a good time for that, reconnecting, and
I think we've all been so busy running. That's what life is now. Run, and especially when you have kids, family, there's even more running to do, or you're a business owner, you're just constantly running. We're running, we've been running away from ourselves, who we are, and who's in our space. Who am I married to? Who am I? Who are my kids? Who are my friends? Right? And so just we're being forced now to reconnect and choosing, oh, I actually don't like this person, so I don't need to talk to them anymore. And oh, who am I thinking of? Oh, I'm thinking about these people I went to school with, or how's my grandmother doing? It's kind of it's purposeful connection now rather than just constantly running.
Yeah.
It's just shift, right? We all need to shift.
And I think when we come back to some kind of new normalcy, it's going to be different. Like we'll take time to decide what's important.
Yeah, definitely. Because we're always so busy, too busy for anything. And what are we really doing? What were we doing? What were we so busy with?
Our own worlds.
Thank you, everyone, for participating in this discussion.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for watching.
And Kaz.
Miss you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah.
Stay colorful.